To another episode of the Man Warrior King podcast. Today, I'm very excited to have a very special guest on with us today. This gentleman, praying medic, he has been actually a very integral part of my life. We got in touch with each other, gosh, about 10 years ago, a little less, and we collaborated on one of his projects. He's also very instrumental in teaching me. What I came to know and began to practice in my life around praying for people to be healed. He's also been a very influential voice for me on hearing God's voice and everything like that. So he's impacted also countless thousands of other people in the same vein. So praying medic, he has published about 20 books, a little more than 20 books, and they cover all kinds of different topics. Many of them are the topics of the kingdom and supernatural workings of the kingdom, which is, like I said, what really drew me to him in the first place. But praying medic, thank you for being with us this morning or this afternoon. Good to have you.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate you having me on the show, and I am looking forward to an interesting discussion about the supernatural.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So to kick things off, why don't you just tell us what your background is, how you got to the place that you are at now? Where did you begin?
Where did I begin? All right. Well, I'll give you a short Reader's Digest
I know
version.
that's a setup for a long answer, isn't
Yeah.
it?
No, we'll do the short version. So, Praying Medic is a former paramedic. I worked as a paramedic for 35 years, and I was an atheist for most of my life. It
Mm.
wasn't just an atheist. I was actually very hostile toward Christianity. Um, I I actually knew exactly one born again Christian. She was my sister in law, and I used to mock her, and I used to mock Bible believing born again Christians. They just annoyed the heck out of me.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
in,
I get it.
in 2000, the year 2000, actually May of 2000, I had a dramatic uh, overnight conversion from being an atheist to being a Christian at the bunkhouse of the fire station. I was working a 48-hour
Wow.
shift at the fire station, and I met Jesus that night, and it radically changed my life. It was just a life altering experience. I then began just kind of attending a Bible believing church in when I was living in Olympia, Washington at that time.
Mm.
And I did that for 7 years. I just, going in, sitting in the church pew on Sundays, listening to the sermon. I listened to a lot of audio messages on the Calvary Satellite Network. This was back
Oh
before
yeah.
social media, right? So
Yeah.
Facebook was invented or became popular in 2004. Twitter, I think, launched in 2007 or 2008. This is back in 2000 before there was any social media. So I was
Yep.
actually listening. I had a little transistor AM/FM radio and an earbud, and I just listened to the Calvary Satellite Network, and Calvary Chapel pastors, teaching the Bible and stuff. I listened to that like for around the clock for days and days and weeks and months after I got saved.
Wow. Wow.
That's largely how I learned the Bible.
Yeah.
However, what I didn't learn was anything about the supernatural because the
Hmm.
pastors I was listening to and the church that I went to, they didn't believe in the supernatural. They didn't teach on hearing God's voice. They didn't teach
Yep.
on deliverance or physical healing or emotional healing, any of that stuff. They were essentially cessationists, or they just believe all that stuff ceased thousands of years ago, not doing that anymore. And that's what I believed.
Hmm.
And then 2008, August 8th, 2008, I had the first dream that I've had in 25 years. I really didn't have any dreams as an adult. And on that night, I met God in a dream. And he said, and I quote, "I want you to pray for your patients and I'm going to heal them." And I was like,
Hmm.
"What are you talking about?" I thought that there was no healing and miracles anymore. So I had to deal with a lot of cognitive dissonance. going
Yeah.
from being an atheist to a Christian, and then going from being a cessationist to now I have to get people healed miraculously. What does that look like?
Totally.
So
Wow.
it was basically a 9 month journey where I prayed for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in the ambulance, in nursing homes and hospitals, and never saw anybody healed. In the probably
Wow.
500 people that I prayed for to be healed, I didn't see one person healed. And I
Wow.
wanted to give up many times. And I'd go home. I'd be like, hey, Lord, I'm done with this. I'm keeping up my end of the deal. You asked me to pray for people. I prayed for everybody I transported today. Nobody got healed. I'm done. You obviously are not taking this seriously. So I'm out. And then I'd go to sleep
Hmm.
that night and have a dream. And I would be in the ambulance in the dream. I'd be praying for somebody to be healed and they would get healed. And I wake up in
Hmm.
the morning like, crap, I guess I'm not done yet. So during
Wow.
that time, I began to follow a few people. There was actually a street healing movement that broke out at that time, 2007, 2008. Todd White was
Yeah.
going out on the
Yep.
streets,
Yep.
and Todd was teaching about healing and deliverance, and he put out some, a couple of films that he was featured in.
Yep.
Uh, and I started watching Todd on in these videos, and he's commanding people to be healed, and he's commanding evil spirits to get out, and he's
Yeah.
commanding ligaments and nerves and tendons to be healed. And people are like, "Wow, man, what did you do? Oh, I can move my wrist now, like the pain's gone." And I was like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, you can't do that. That's like you. That's not how it works. You can't do that. You have to beg God to heal somebody. That's what I was taught. Like, who does this guy think he is, commanding people to be healed? Right, again, so cognitive dissonance. I was like, man, this is like, I don't get it, but it works. He's actually
Oh
doing it.
man. Yeah.
So then I changed my approach to healing. I started commanding ligaments and nerves, muscles, tendons,
Hmm.
bones, cartilage, discs to be healed, exercising authority.
Hmm.
Luke chapter 9 verses 1 and 2. And pretty soon people started getting healed. I remember early on, one of the very first people I saw healed in the ambulance, transported this lady. She had fallen, and she thought she had broken her hip or her femur. She had hip and femur pain. And we're transporting her to the hospital, and I'm getting her medical history from her. I'm interviewing her as she's sitting on the gurney, and she's telling me her medical history. And she says, I have scoliosis and I have this. I'm like, wait a minute, scoliosis? Like, hang on a second. Can I pray for you to be healed? She's like, uh, okay, sure, yeah, pray for me. And I said, do you have like chronic back pain? And she said, all the time. I said, how bad is it? She's like, it's 7 or 8 out of 10, like all the time. And I said, all right, I'm going to pray for you. So I put my hand on her back and I commanded her back to be healed, the spine, the ligaments, the nerves, cartilage, the disc, everything to be healed. And boom, like that. She said, what did you do? Like, I just prayed for you. She's
Yeah.
like, no, I mean, like, I seriously have no pain. Like, it's completely gone, like for the first time in
Yeah.
years. So she got healed. And I was
Wow.
like, okay, I'm onto something here. This actually works. And then I started
Yep.
praying for more people, and doctors and nurses, people with boots on, post surgery, a lot of, torn Achilles tendons, and a lot of orthopedic injuries, because people who have orthopedic injuries, they have a big red sign over their head that says pray for me. Like, I've got this
Hmm.
sling on my shoulder because I've got, you know, a torn rotator cuff. When you see that, I saw that person at Safeway, and I'm like, oh, that person needs to be prayed for. And walk up to him,
Yeah.
hey, can I pray for you? The person wearing a boot usually would end up with some kind of, let's say torn Achilles tendon, some kind of ankle fracture or whatever. I do, hey, can I pray for you? Pray for them and they get healed. Right.
Yep.
So that's my backstory. And then I began writing the stories on social media, and then I began, publishing some books. The Lord took me from physical healing to emotional healing.
Hmm.
And then I zoned in a lot more on hearing God's voice, wrote a book on that. deliverance, and then all the different modalities that kind of branch out from there. So that's kind of my story.
Yeah, I love that story. I actually, I wasn't maybe if I knew it before, I had forgotten it, but I wasn't aware that you had been trying to pray for healing for so long, literally
Yeah,
hundreds of people
dude, it
before
was so
seeing the success.
discouraging. Yeah, it was discouraging
Oh,
and
yeah.
frustrating. And I tell people, look, you're not going to get the first person healed that you pray for, probably. You may not get the first 10 people healed you pray for, but until you pray for 500 people, you can't quit. You just got to keep going. And by the way,
Yeah,
don't beg God to heal, because that doesn't work. I can tell you that with experience.
totally. Totally. So that's it's so funny because Todd White was also instrumental for me to kind of um not only in the healing department, but just breaking into the entire supernatural side of the faith.
Yeah.
And I first saw him when he was up at Bethel introing their screening of Holy Ghost.
Yeah.
That's the first time I ran into him. I just was watching it online, and then I watched
Oh,
him and the movie, and I was like, "Whoa, okay." So it's
yeah.
funny you say what you said because you know the saying like let my ceiling become your floor, right? Like if
Right.
and so I feel like for you and for Todd, your guys' ceilings were kind of my floor because the first person I prayed for actually did get healed,
Wow. Oh,
believe it or
really?
not.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's great.
So because I had learned from you and from him,
You had learned the
I
technique, right? You see,
yes,
Todd, and Pete Cabrera, and a bunch of other guys who were doing the street healing at the time. We didn't have anybody to model that for us. So
right.
Todd prayed for hundreds of people, didn't see anybody healed. Pete Cabrera prayed for
Yep.
hundreds of people, didn't see anybody healed. I did the same thing, and because we had all been through that really frustrating, aggravating, praying for hundreds of people and nobody getting healed, guys like you who came after us, you had you had the advantage of, oh, so they already tried all the stuff that doesn't work, and then they figured something that does work, and now I get the benefit of that. So yeah,
Yeah, I just reaped for where you sowed, man, of like so much because I didn't start off just asking God to do it, right? Obviously, I started off based on what you're saying and everything. Speak to it, command it, and it felt weird. It felt really weird to do it
it
for the
does
first
feel
time.
weird. It
Yeah,
really does. Yeah.
yeah, but it's like what you said about you step into that authority and that's a part of Christian living that so many of us in the church don't get. In fact, we have a lot of teachings that would kind of push us away from that, which is there's nothing good in you that you can't bring anything good to the table.
Right.
Uh, if anything good is going to happen in your life or around you, it's going to have to come from God. You're kind of only just a sinner saved by grace, and you'll never amount to anything more than that.
Right.
So we have a lot that would keep us away from stepping into our authority. But as you were saying, once you did, like it just kind of took off then, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Well,
not like you see every person get healed, I'm assuming, but you started to see it happen a lot, right?
I started to see it a lot more, and pretty
Yeah.
soon, if you keep at this and you apply the principles that are there in the scriptures, and I'm going to go into a little teaching here, if I may. If you apply
Yeah.
these principles in the scriptures and you just continue at it and keep going, you will eventually get to a place where 75 to 80% of the people you pray for will get healed.
Yeah.
I know people who probably have a 90% or 95% success rate. I'm not there myself necessarily, but then I'm praying for people with really serious conditions. And a lot of it is by
Sure.
email, and I never get to follow up with these people. So
Hmm.
the 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 Bible verse that has had more impact on me in the last 10 years than any other Bible verse is Luke chapter 9, verses 1 and 2. It's really short.
Hmm.
It says, Jesus called the 12 disciples to himself, and he gave them power and authority over demons
Hmm.
and to heal diseases, and he sent them out into the cities to heal the sick. All right. And
Hmm.
and that verse when I finally apprehended what that verse means, I was like, oh, that's a commission.
Yeah.
He has
Yeah.
given us power, He has given us authority, and we can exercise the authority and we can release the power.
Yeah.
We don't have to beg God to do this stuff because God has told us, I'm giving you all the authority you need. I'm giving you the power. You go out there and you release that and you get people healed. Now, if you go through the Gospels, and I would say, just as a really good um, lesson, start in about Matthew chapter 6 or Luke chapter 6 and start
Hmm.
reading up through Luke chapter 9 or Matthew chapter 10, right? So those
Yep.
whether you read Luke or Matthew doesn't matter, but you're going to read a lot about the miracles, the where Jesus released power to work creative miracles, and where he exercised authority to kick out demons, right?
Hmm.
And you're gonna,
Yep.
and then if you go to like Acts chapter 5, you'll see the disciples doing it. And if you
Yeah.
focus on those chapters in the New Testament and just focus on and look at what they're doing, how they did it, you will start to realize, okay, that's the stuff we're supposed to be doing. We have the same power, we have the same authority. God has not changed his game plan. What you see in the New Testament, it's all fair game for us, and we can and should be doing all that stuff. And it's a matter of
Yeah.
renewing your mind to the truth, and then stepping out and getting over the chicken line and saying, okay, I'm going to pray for that stranger.
Hmm.
I'm at Home Depot. I see that guy. He's got the sling on his shoulder. I'm just going to walk over to him and introduce myself and say, hey, I'm not a weirdo, but I want to pray for you. Can I pray for
Yeah.
you? And just put your hand on him and command the shoulder to be healed and see what happens. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really, that's how it works.
Right. Right. Just as simple as first believing that it's possible,
Yep.
and then, like you said, stepping over the line of I'm afraid to do this, I'm embarrassed,
I don't
whatever.
want
You
to look
just got to
stupid.
bite the bullet.
But what if they don't get healed? All the other stuff.
Yeah.
Get over it.
Yeah.
Just get over it and just
Yeah.
do the stuff.
Exactly, exactly. Because that question, what if they don't get healed? I mean, all that is it's just cowardice. And the
That is literally a demon talking to you, telling you they're not going to get healed, and you're going to look like an idiot. All right, you're listening to a freaking demon. Listen to Jesus tell you, go lay hands on that person, go get them healed. You'll be
yeah,
astounded if they get healed.
oh, I love it. Just call it like it is, man. There's no beating around the bush at all. It is. It's
Correct.
demonic. It is
Right.
totally demonic.
Right.
That whole narrative that would lead you into thinking it's over. They're probably not going to get healed. Demons have actually trained us to believe more in the non-biblical
Right.
outcomes,
Right.
such as lack of healing, lack of miracles, lack of victory, than we believe in biblical outcomes, which is that he leads us always in victory, that
Right.
that he gave us authority over every disease and every affliction, not just some of them. So
Right.
yeah, I love that you said that because it's true. We
Hey,
get
you can even go
yeah,
pray over dead people and get them resurrected. That's
yeah,
also in the Bible. But
yeah,
so let me touch on something that you just mentioned, which is when people are
yeah.
not healed. In my book, uh, Divine Healing Made Simple, there are 3 chapters in there that answer those questions. Sometimes
Mm,
people get healed and then their symptoms return. And I have an entire chapter on how to keep your healing after you're healed, because there are some things that you can do and not do
mhm,
that will cause the symptoms to recur.
mhm,
What to do when someone is not healed. I also have a chapter in the book on when people are not healed. And there's a whole list of things that you need to sort of be aware of in the healing dynamic. It's not always just an issue of exercising authority or
mm,
releasing power for a creative miracle. Sometimes it's deliverance, kicking out an evil spirit. A lot of
Yeah.
people have conditions that are rooted in emotional trauma, and they need
Yeah.
emotional healing. And if you don't know how to do emotional healing, you're not going to get those people healed. There are
Yeah.
generational curses, and there are actually word curses. People speak over their other people, and a curse can actually cause a condition to remain. Curses have to be broken sometimes, right? So there's all these different issues that have to be dealt with.
Yep.
My wife has a condition, and in a dream one time, the Lord told me that she needs her DNA healed, right?
Hmm.
So there's all kinds of issues that need to be addressed.
Yeah.
That that if you pray for somebody and they're not healed, don't give up and think, okay, this doesn't work. This God, it's not God's will to heal this person, whatever. Because most of the time, if you go through the list and rule out one thing after another, pretty soon you'll figure out what the issue is. Oh, here it is. This is the issue. Address that issue, and then their healing will manifest.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's a
I'm
little
glad you
bit
brought.
of, you have to put on your detective's cap a little bit and
Yeah.
figure out what the issue is. But don't get discouraged if you pray for people and they're not healed right away.
I'm really glad you brought that up because that is the tendency that uh m- a lot in our modern church culture have is to assume that if my prayer, whether it's for healing or something else,
Right.
assume that if my
Or
prayer
job.
didn't get answered, yeah, then it wasn't God's will. And
There's
that takes us out of the game really early on in the process where that's I mean, when I've studied scriptures about healing, you can't convince me that it's ever God's will not to heal somebody.
Yeah, because everyone who came to Jesus for healing was healed or set free of their evil spirits. Not one person did Jesus or the disciples ever say, "Oh, well, it's not God's will to heal this person."
Yeah.
Everyone who wanted healing in the New Testament got healed.
Yeah.
And that to me, that strongly suggests it's always God's will to heal people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I agree. And we even have examples of like Matthew 17 where the disciples were trying to heal the dad's son who had the demon and threw him around into the fire and stuff and they couldn't do it, but Jesus rebuked them. It wasn't like, "Oh, well that's because it's God's will that he doesn't get healed." No,
right,
Jesus was like
your
upset with
faith.
him. "Hey, you should have been able to do this."
Yeah, unbelief.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
and unbelief
Exactly.
is a big issue.
Mhm.
Uh, I have a unique perspective on faith for healing. It's
Yeah.
it's in the book Power and Authority Made Simple. It's also in the book Divine Healing. But the issue with faith is faith has to grow. Most of us
Mm.
start out operating in the supernatural, and we have a lot of doubt and skepticism and fear and unbelief.
Mhm.
And all of those things impede your ability to work the miracles. I'm just going to say it that way.
Hmm. Mhm.
It is a process as you go forward in God's kingdom, as you grow in spiritual maturity, that you develop greater faith. Jesus
Mm.
never, ever commended people who had little faith. He rebuked the disciples because of their unbelief. The Roman
Yeah.
centurion who came to the Lord to have his servant healed, the Lord said, I haven't seen such great faith even in all of Israel, right?
Mm.
Faith has to grow. And as you see people healed, as you work those miracles, as you see those demons get kicked out of people and they're set free, your faith, your confidence will grow. And the greater your
Yeah.
confidence is, I equate confidence and faith to be the same thing. The
Yeah.
more confident you are, the greater faith you have, the more reliably you're going to see people set free. And faith just it
Yeah.
has to grow. And the only way to do that is it's experience. You have to go out there and do the stuff and get knocked down a few times and get back up and just keep fighting. And the more breakthrough that you get, your faith, your confidence will grow and you'll have greater success.
I can 100% attest to that. I really agree with you that faith it's I got the analogy that I think of a lot with this issue is going to the gym to work out. Like if there's a lot of times people, might have this hope that, okay, if this is going to work, then I'm going to walk into the room with the person in the wheelchair and they're going to be able to get up right now. And the truth is, if you go to the gym and you try to bench press 500 pounds without ever hitting the gym ever before in your life, you probably won't be able to lift it off the ground. So you've got to start somewhere where your faith is at the level to see some results, and then
Right.
you continually grow and you exercise those muscles.
Can
I
I
would
give you
agree
some?
with you.
Yeah, can I give you an observation on that?
Yeah.
And this is probably the biggest mistake people make. And if this is you, I'm not picking on you because I see this happen all the time. I get emails every day from people who make this mistake. And I'm going to be very
Mm,
clear about what I mean when I say this so that there's no way to misinterpret what I'm saying.
yeah.
The biggest mistake people make in healing is they don't practice healing on strangers who have
Mm,
minor conditions. All right.
mhm,
Let me explain what I mean by that. When I
mhm.
was working on the ambulance and God was having me go out and pray for people, I would go to Walmart or I'd go to a gas station or Target or Home Depot. And whenever you go to a checkout stand, back in the day before they had everything was self checkout, there were people who actually worked at the checkout register and they actually would bag things and they would work a checkout register and they got repetitive motion injuries in their wrists. And you
Yeah.
could walk in there and reliably find three or four people who had immobilizers, black immobilizers wrapped around their wrists because they have repetitive motion injuries, carpal tunnel syndrome. And
Yep.
still to this day, if you go to Walmart, you'll see people walking around with those little black immobilizers on their wrists. That is the best person to go up to them and ask them, "Hey, uh, I'm a Christian. I'm learning about supernatural healing. Can I try to get your wrist healed?"
Mhm,
And when they say
mhm.
yes, put your hand over their wrist and just command the carpal tunnels to be open, command the nerves and the ligaments and the tendons to be healed, and then ask them, what do they feel? And they're going to feel heat or tingling.
Mm,
90% of the time, if you command those ligaments, nerves, and tendons to be healed, they're going to tell you they feel warmth or tingling. And
yeah.
keep
Wow.
doing it and say, okay, move it around, take the immobilizer off, move it around. How does it feel? All right. This is the best way to start doing healing.
Mhm.
Most people do not do that. They start their healing ministry when their mother develops Lou Gehrig's disease,
You're
when their
right.
father is in the ICU with a pulmonary embolus and a stroke and they're on a ventilator.
Yep.
All right. And now they're in a panic because, oh my gosh, I'm a Christian. I have to get this person healed. And they haven't ever seen anybody healed before.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you, you're going to have problems getting people, relatives especially, who are
Mhm.
severely ill, who are in a life threatening situation. If you have done no supernatural healing prior to that, your chances of getting that person healed are about 1%
Yeah.
because
Totally.
you haven't yet gone up that ramp, that learning curve to get up to where you have the faith to heal people with Lou Gehrig's disease, to heal people with multiple sclerosis and cancer and all these other issues because those things require a little bit more faith. They're more
Yeah.
intimidating, they're more serious.
Yeah.
And so hear what I'm saying and then what I'm not saying. I'm not saying don't pray for your severely ill relatives. It's not what I'm saying.
Mhm.
I'm saying if you want to be successful, go out and pray for the strangers who have a sprained ankle. Uh,
Mhm.
Joint injuries are the easiest thing to heal. Frozen
Mhm.
shoulder, rotator cuff injuries, carpal tunnel in the wrist, tendonitis. Tennis elbow is really good. If you know somebody who's got tennis elbow, pray over it. Command the ligaments and the nerves and the tendons to be healed. They'll feel heat,
Yeah.
they'll feel tingling. They'll move it around. They'll go, "What the heck did you do? All my pain is gone." And you'll be like, "Yay! This actually works." Go for the
Yeah.
sprained ankles. Go for the little
Yep.
bit of hip pain, something like that. Joint injuries are relatively easy to heal, and you'll know that the person is healed because you'll ask them, "Hey, how bad was your pain?" Or ask them to
Hmm.
begin. I usually, when I start, I ask them on a scale of 0 to 10, how bad is your pain? And if they say 7, I say, okay, we're going to start here. We'll start at 7. Put my hand on the injured joint, command ligaments, nerves, muscles, tendons, bones, cartilage. If it's a back injury, discs to be healed. Uh, and then ask them, okay, 0 to 10, where's your pain at now? And if they say 5, and you know you're going in the right direction, so do it again, and then ask
Mm.
them. If they say 3, like, okay, do it again. Next
Yep.
time it's down to 1. Next time it's down to 0, and have them move it around. Check the range of motion. If they say, "Wow, that's amazing! Like I was frozen and now I can like put my arm straight up." Like, what did you do? Right? You
Yeah.
know for a fact that person was healed. Right?
Yep.
With someone who has cancer, you're not you can pray over them, but you're not going to know if they're healed. They have to go get a
Hmm.
PET scan or some other
Hmm.
test before you're going to know if they're healed. If they have a joint injury, the healing is obvious. You can just have them check their range of motion and they can move it fine with no pain. They're healed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so I strongly, strongly recommend if you're new to this, start out with a joint injury, start out with a stranger. I mean, you can pray with
Hmm.
kids and neighbors and stuff. That's fine. I, I really recommend go to the grocery store, you go to the hardware store, you go wherever you're going shopping, Christmas shopping, whatever. You see somebody with a boot on their foot or a knee brace or a wrist immobilizer or a shoulder sling or something that is a sign that's screaming out to you, "Hey, I need healing. Come over here and get me
Right.
healed." All right.
Right.
With you'll notice that mostly in the New Testament, Jesus and the disciples, they weren't getting their family members healed, with the exception of Peter's, mother. But that was a Lord, like just rebuking a spirit. Mostly
Yeah.
strangers.
Yeah.
They would whoever they saw, where they come upon, a beggar, someone who is blind, just a random stranger. They would get that person healed. It wasn't ministry to family members and friends.
Yeah.
Not to
Yeah.
say you can't, because I have done it. I have prayed over my son when he was in high school. He was in track and swimming, and he came home with injuries all the friggin' time.
Hmm.
Partially
Hmm.
separated shoulder, blown out knee, strained ligaments, knee strain, tendon injuries. And I'd pray over him. And every single time I prayed over my son, he'd go into school the next day. Boom, he's back swimming. He's back on, running, whatever he was doing. Injury.
Yeah.
He got healed like every time I prayed for him.
Wow.
So you can absolutely pray for friends and family. My encouragement is don't don't wait until one of your family members is in the ICU with a life-threatening condition and then think, well, I'm just going to develop, the faith to heal this incurable disease with having no experience whatsoever, because it's not going to happen. It's just, I mean, you may
Yeah.
get lucky, but the chances are very, very slim. And
I totally agree.
a lot of people get discouraged because they pray for that terminally ill family member and that person dies, and then they're wondering, like, what did I do wrong? Like, well,
Yeah.
how many people did you see healed before you prayed for them? Well, nobody.
Yep.
Okay, well, that's the problem.
Yep.
So uh you know like I said, I'm not trying to be a wet blanket, and I'm not trying to be overly critical. This is just the reality of the healing dynamic. You're going to have
Yeah.
a lot better success if you start out with the small injuries and work your way up to harder and harder things. I saw a
Hmm.
number of people healed of joint injuries, scoliosis, shoulder injuries, all kinds of orthopedic injuries before, uh, hundreds of them before I ever saw anyone healed of cancer. It was
Hmm.
probably a year had gone by, and I'd seen lots of people healed when I got my first requested, get pray for somebody with cancer. And then we saw two people healed of cancer in 2 days. Um,
Awesome.
but I had to work up the ladder, get to build my faith, my confidence to where I had the confidence to say, okay, yeah, we can defeat this thing. I'm going after this
Yeah.
cancer, and and then you build on from there.
Yeah, I fully agree with all of that too. I don't think that's being a wet blanket at all. And in fact, to speak to another angle to that, I think when you do work with strangers as opposed to friends and family, it forces you into a place of faith faster than if you're staying in your comfort zone. I know that when I first started out, uh, I would not see hardly any results among people that I knew, whether it was family or friends, even if it was minor stuff. But when I went and I got out of my comfort zone and it was more risky and I was like putting myself out there more, it was like easy to see the results. And I think I don't know all the mechanics of it, but I think for me there was a building of my faith that happened better and faster when I was, like I said, outside my comfort zone. And eventually, somewhere along the line, it got to a tipping point where I started to see results happen in the walls of church, even, which never happened before, or in family and stuff too. So I totally can relate with what you're saying. It's absolutely 100% true for my story too. I think it's a very good point. And I want to you what something you said, something that I really liked. You said that you kind of equate faith with confidence. And there's the confidence of, okay, I'm confident that when I pray this is probably going to happen. There's that part of confidence, but then there's also this confidence that I would say is maybe a little deeper down and more foundational, that's kind of linked to the topic of our authority, walking in authority. I mean, I work with a lot of guys where a general lack of confidence and lack of identity has caused their life to somewhat stagnate, if not feel like it's starting to decay, because they have this bad like vision of themselves. They have very low confidence and think that God's not pleased with them. What would you
Yep.
what's your thoughts about that part of everything we're talking about here?
I think when it comes to operating in the supernatural, so I'm going to bifurcate the audience here, uh, as it were, into two groups of people. There are people who are sort of, um, they view the church as the primary manifestation of God in the current age. It's the institution that we call the church. That's their focus. The church is the God's manifestation of His kingdom on earth. That's how they see it. And then there are people like me who believe that God's kingdom is the primary focus of God's work in the earth in the current age. It's a
Mm,
church
mhm,
mentality versus a kingdom mentality. And
mhm.
I had a church mentality for the first 7 or 8 years that I was a Christian. I just thought everything was about the church, the building, we go into on Sunday and do our thing. But what God has taught me since 2008 through thousands of dreams, visions, revelation, teaching from people that I respect, people like Bill Johnson and you know
Mhm.
uh, the list goes on. Todd White.
Yeah.
Um, I learned that it is actually God's kingdom that is primary, and we are representatives of God's kingdom. We have been authorized as God's representatives, as Paul said, we are ambassadors of Christ to the world, right? Ambassadors, we are authorized. Bible says we are seated in heavenly places with Christ. Okay? We
Yeah.
are seated on thrones in heaven with the Lord. That is not a picture of a lowly, worthless sinner saved by grace who is no good and can do nothing. And so
Yeah.
you
Totally.
either you either have an identity where you literally believe you are just a worthless sinner who's never going to do anything, you know, supernatural, anything significant. You're just going to like go to church every Sunday, you know, pay your tithes and listen to a lecture and then go home and have a miserable week. Or, or you're going to have an, a new identity established in you where you realize I am a highly favored, valued, beloved son of the creator of the universe. And he wants me to manifest his goodness, his love, his power, his mercy into this earth so that people will know that God loves them and cares about them. And I can be the
Yeah.
vehicle through which they come to realize, wow, God loves me. He wants to
Yeah.
redeem all the junk in my life that's been broken. He wants to make it new. And identity is the key. And I'll tell you a
Mm.
real quick story. I had a dream one time
Yeah.
where I met God the Father in heaven. And um, I was stunned when I met God the Father because he was this loving, compassionate, funny man who absolutely adored me. Everything
Mm.
I did, he just loved. He laughed at my stupid jokes. I was the
Huh.
apple of his eye. Okay. And I
Wow.
am no better, no different, no more special than anybody else. I have done some horrible things in my life. I have
Hmm.
ruined my life. I've ruined other people's lives. I have done all kinds of bad stuff. All right. I'm not
Yeah.
some, you know, plaster saint, but that's God showed me that I'm literally in that experience. I felt like I was his favorite kid.
Hmm.
Okay. That revelation forever changed my life. When I realized God doesn't despise me, doesn't think I'm a worthless sinner, values me, loves me, wants to spend time with me, thinks that my stupid jokes are funny. And what I want to tell you, if you're listening to this, God feels the same way about you. He values you, he loves you, he cherishes you, and he adores you, and he wants you to know that. And if you don't
Mm.
know that yet, you need to know that because once you accept that that's how God sees you, it's going to change your life. When you
Mm.
accept that identity and you start living from that identity, it is going to change your life. Everything about your life will change. Your
Mm.
perspective on God will change. Your perspective on you is going to change. Your perspective on your spouse, your family, your career, your purpose in on the world, all of that is going to change when you accept that you are a just dearly beloved son of the God who created the universe.
Wow. Wow. Man, so how if there's a guy out there who's like, "Yeah, that sounds incredible. I would love to feel that, or I'd love to know that that's how God sees me. I don't get the dreams. I haven't encountered God." What would you say to somebody in that place?
Ask God to show you how he
Mm.
feels about you.
Yeah.
If you have not felt that all consuming, overwhelming, full embrace of God's love, you just ask. Ask
Mhm.
God to show you a real manifestation of his love and then wait for it and believe that he is going to show you that love.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good. I mean, that's that has been what you're talking about there, I can attest to, has been one of the most pivotal shifts in my life because um, I I grew up under just not put upon me by parents or anything, but just it was just there. I grew up under a cloud of like I'm not all that great.
Yeah.
I'm messed up. God's not going to be able to use me much, and it was damaging. I mean, that I do believe that the physical condition that came on me and when I was 20 was largely related to that bad religious mindset. And so we're not talking about, oh, this is a nice little add-on, a nice extra for living life well. This is a matter of life or death, whether you get your identity. If to be quite frank,
It is.
whether it's yeah.
It is because God has a unique destiny for each of us, and you cannot manifest that destiny unless you know your identity. Identity comes first, and then your destiny comes second, and you have to know both of those.
Mm, yeah. I mean, I think about what what would the landscape of even just our one nation, the United States, look like if we had a church full of people who were grasping this type of identity that God is absolutely 100% delighted in me. And then, like you're saying, that sets you up for your destiny. And we have a church full of people who are actually living their destinies rather than settling for a life just trying to get by and
The
the
country would look
constant
a lot different.
struggle. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
the country would look a lot different if people understood how deeply they are loved by God, understood their identity, and understood their destiny and started pursuing that destiny. Uh,
Yeah.
our country would be in a very different place.
Absolutely. And then once you have all of that, your identity, your destiny, you start to be living in authority, which I know where this I don't intend to open up a whole other conversation, but that authority doesn't just mean for physical healing. That's
Correct.
a that's
Correct.
a universal, right?
It
That's
is
just
a
like all of life.
massive right because because each of us has a specific destiny that God has purposed for us. And within that destiny, God has authorized you to do certain things, to partner with certain people, he has authorized you to attain certain skills, certain knowledge. He has resources he wants to make available for you to manifest your destiny. And
Mm,
there is a level of authority that comes with all of that.
mhm.
Like I have, I'll give you just a brief example. Um, During COVID, I have a lot of friends who are on social media just talking about vaccines and COVID, and that was like their thing for like 3 years. Even
Yeah.
though I have a medical background and worked as a paramedic, the Lord did not give me one dream or one bit of revelation about COVID or vaccines.
Hmm. Wow.
So I did not post on social media about COVID or vaccines. Why? Because I wasn't authorized.
Hmm.
I actually had a dream years ago. This is probably 8 or 9 years ago, where I saw the commander of the Lord's army.
Hmm.
And he came down to earth and he was inspecting his troops. And he was pissed off because his people were doing things without authorization. They were teaching messages they'd never been authorized to teach and doing things they'd never been authorized to do. And most of them didn't
Whoa.
even know they needed authorization.
Wow.
That is
Wow.
why I'm very, very careful about what I post on social media because I know I have I have like a
Huh.
package of topics that God has authorized me to talk about. Physical
Yeah.
healing, emotional healing, deliverance, seeing in the spirit, hearing God's voice, dreams. That's my package. Those are the things God has authorized me to talk about. He's given me specific revelation about those issues that I can teach from. But if I have not received revelation from God on that issue, I don't talk about it. People ask me, why
Yeah.
don't you ever talk about this? Why don't you post about that? I'm like, well, I'm not authorized. Like, God hasn't given me permission to do that. It's like, not my thing.
Huh.
I try to stay within the bounds of my authority. I'm authorized to do
Mm.
certain things, I'm not authorized to do other things. And part
Mhm.
of walking out your destiny is knowing what God has authorized you to do and what He has not authorized you to do. So
Mm-hmm.
there you go.
Mm-hmm. Man, yeah. Plus, having seen the commander of the Lord's army all pissed off, I'm sure you don't really want to cross him now, right?
That was a heavy dream, let me tell you.
That'll
Yeah,
scare anybody straight.
heads were gonna roll. I was like,
Yeah.
"Ooh, boy, he's not happy with
Oh, that's funny. That's so good. That's so good. How can people find you and follow you, get in touch with what you're doing?
that." A couple of ways. I'm on X slash Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and my handle is simply at praying medic. I'm on there. I'm pretty active. I post I post healing testimonies from time to time. Some I do some live streams with a few people, and we talk about the supernatural healing and all these different things. I also
Yeah.
have a whole bunch of Telegram channels. So my
Mm.
main Telegram channel is it's praying underscore medic on Telegram. That's the main channel. I do my live streams on there. Supernatural Saturday is the second Saturday of the month. Live streams on there. I do question and answer. You can jump on the live stream and raise your hand, and I try to get to everybody who has their hand raised who wants to ask a question. Second Saturday of the month in Telegram, and then on Telegram I've got a bunch of other channels where people talk about dreams. There's a dream interpretation
Mm.
channel. There is a ham radio channel. There is a
Mm.
channel for if you're interested in um, health and nutrition. We have a separate channel for discussing that. All kinds
Oh,
of
cool.
separate channels for different things that people want to talk about. And then there's prayingmedic.com. My main website is just prayingmedic.com. Articles, videos, podcasts, books, classes, it's all there on my website.
Yeah. Awesome. And as well, people can go to Amazon to pick up any of the books that
Sure can.
we've
And if you
referred
hate
to
Amazon, my
today.
books are on. Yeah, if you hate Amazon, my books are also available on Barnes and Noble.
Right. So wherever your affections draw you, you can find the books
Correct.
there. Yeah. And I can highly recommend the books. I've read several of them: Divine Healing Made Simple, Emotional Healing, the Hearing God's Voice, all of it. Um, Selfish plug, if you want to pick up his book God Speaks, you'll find an essay from me in there as well. So uh
That is probably the most underappreciated book that I published. It has essays from all of these various friends of mine who hear God speak in different ways.
yeah.
And the book is called God Speaks. It's just a compilation of essays from Matt and some other friends who explain how God speaks to them in their own particular way. And it's a really good book. If you're interested in learning the many different ways in which God speaks, you should probably check out that book.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of good contributors to that. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the conversation. I feel like man, I could just keep going because there's so much that you and I see so eye to eye on. And I
And
love,
it's crazy too
yeah.
because it's literally been like 9 years since we have contacted each other. But it's
I
been
know.
lovely talking to you. Yeah,
It has been. It has been. Yeah, I mean, it has. It's been so long, but I mean, I feel like we could just go for hours, honestly, because
yeah,
everything you're saying, it actually does good things for me because wh- the way I preach and talk, like we go to church. I teach things that would not necessarily be accepted in my local church at the moment, which is unfortunate, but it's very good because it nourishes my spirit knowing that I'm not just deluding myself talking this way. I'm not off track or anything. Like, no, we're seeing eye to eye on these things. And
yeah.
yeah, it's very good. It's very good. Well, thank you. Everybody go follow Praying Medic, whether you're on X or on Telegram. Grab his books, any and all of them. You will be blessed. Your life will never be the same. We need the kind of stuff that he's teaching us here. So go find him, go follow him. And until next time, God bless everybody. Peace. All right. We're done recording.
Cool.
And
That was good.